What's up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Feel free to follow me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media, including TikTok. I have posted my first TikTok. Actually, I did, and then I deleted it because I,
Oh
I
shit.
no, because it was in retrospect, it was very bad. It was bad
Oh, okay.
TikTok. I didn't want that to go on record of my lameness on the internet. So that is now gone. Oh well, so be it. May it rest in peace. But it don't matter. It's a new day, just like it's a new show. And I have a very special guest with me today, Joseph.
Oh. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no.
I'm sorry.
I went too long. It reached that point where I should have stopped, but I didn't want to. I
I'm
just
sorry.
said
I was I was like waiting. Like,
it.
did he forget how to pronounce my last name?
No,
don't
yeah,
don't edit that out. Just leave it
no,
in
yeah,
there.
it's
Just
it's there.
awkward. It's totally awesome. I
It's
love that.
there. We got Joseph
Yaden.
Yaden, everybody.
Hello.
So for the people at home who haven't heard of you, shame on you if you haven't. Who are you? Where can they find you? And what do you do, sir?
Thank you so much for saying that. By the way, for saying shame on you if you don't know who that is. It's very nice. I'm a games journalist. I write for several different sites. I'm a freelancer, so I'm all over the place. I've written for IGN, Digital Trends, Games Radar. I focus a lot on guides, but I've done news, I've done interviews, features, that sort of thing. Love Nintendo, love Call of Duty Warzone. I've been covering that for its entire lifespan. Love Demon Souls, which we'll talk about later on in the show, and I love progressive metal. And
Oh,
yeah.
real quick. This has nothing to do with the show. But what is progressive metal? Enlighten me. I am intrigued.
God, that's kind of how much time you got? That's a complicated.
You got
answer.
1 minute. It's like presidential debate. You got a minute. The floor is yours.
and then I get cut off. Okay, yeah, progressive metal. So it's sort of I guess a different take on metal where there are lots of different mashups of genres, weird time signatures. It does songs don't follow the normal verse chorus song structure. Songs are very long. 1 minute it can be super heavy. The next minute there'll be like a weird jazz, like slow little thing that goes on, and then you get like an accordion. It's just weird. So pretty much any progressive, like as the name suggests, anything that's like not what you normally would expect, mashed with metal. That's what that is.
All right. I like that you said jazz because as you were describing, I was like, this sounds like jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz has weird time signatures. They can be
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes long with nonstop,
Exactly.
instrumental breaks. So, all right,
Right.
I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I love that with all my heart. I cannot wait to go to metal shows again when this pandemic blows over. I'm like itching to go to a metal show. So yeah.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to my new mug. It's not new, but I never drank with it on the show. So look, it's
Oh
tail,
hell yeah.
Pikachu's tail. Yeah. So
Oh nice. I
spot,
I was
shameless plug for the mug.
I was suffering from the Mandela effect with Pikachu's tail. Remember how I guess apparently there's no stripe on his tail, but in my memory there is a stripe on his tail at the top. And it was this whole Mandela effect thing that happened with me when I realized that, and a lot of people also suffered from that as well.
I'm gonna blame the anime. I'm pretty sure there was an offbeat Pikachu that had a stripe on his tail.
Yeah, exactly.
You remember the surfing Pikachu Puka? He had blue eyes.
Puka, yeah. Oh, goodness gracious.
But moving on, we do have video games to talk about, people. Yeah, I know. That was a great intro. You learned something new today. Knowledge is power. The more you know.
Hell yeah.
I'm not gonna edit in that star for the YouTube version, but y'all can just imagine it. It's there.
Imagine a star. Yeah.
There you go. Use your imaginations. Earn it. So today we have a very interesting show for you as always. We are going to be talking about Demon Souls. You know it. PS5 time is among us. 1 day away, people. 1 day away. Get excited. They got a breadth of new features, graphics, everything. We're just gonna dive into that. But before that, you gotta have a PS5, right? So in case you haven't got a pre-order, we're gonna be talking about Sony's not in store decision of PS5s on launch day and how that's going to go, where you can find them, what companies have said, what Sony has said, and all that nonsense. But before any of that, any of that. The biggest thing on the table right now is the announcement of Mass Effect Trilogy Remastered, which, if you live in the great country of the US of A, we had election woes. So for our US listeners, if you missed that news, it's understandable. It was like Mass Effect Trilogy, we have a new president, which exactly how that news went. Like, I kept seeing Mass Effect stuff, and I was like, what? I don't get this meme. Does Biden like Mass Effect? And I was like, when did this, like, crap.
Some people think that Biden willed that into existence for us. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but perhaps.
Maybe. So, in case you missed the news or you've been under a rock since then, we are getting the Mass Effect trilogy in 2021. So,
Hmm.
not that long from now. If I had to guess, probably in the later half. I mean, but if it comes out like in March, more power to it.
I think it
Because
said spring. I think it
spring?
said spring, but I
Okay.
don't know. Spring could mean anything. Spring could
It
mean
could.
the year after that. Who knows? I don't. I have no idea.
And if we're going by the cyberpunk,
Right. Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Who
But
knows?
we talked about that last week, people. I won't dive back into that. So I'm excited for this because I have a great gaming scene. I've never fully beat a Mass Effect game. I played part of
Oh wow.
one. I've never played two, never played three. I know all the
Mm,
controversy with three, and honestly, this is from me not playing the game, so don't come at me. I mean, you can, but don't. Like, the ending didn't sound that bad.
right.
It didn't sound so bad to where the first amazing three titles, it was just like, I don't like that ending. And
Hmm.
and then that's it. Like, I don't I mean, based off of how RPG sci-fi stories go, the hero dying at the end, spoiler alert,
Spoiler. Spoiler. Spoiler.
spoiler,
Spoiler.
spoiler alert of a decade-old game.
Yeah.
I mean, that just kind of happens. People are like, my progress didn't matter. No, you made 1,001 different choices. They gave you 1,001 different results from other people. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
real. At
It.
best, they couldn't write 1,000 endings. They could give you like 3 to 5. That's like the industry standard for multiple endings. You don't get
Right.
like 1,000.
What I think is really fascinating about that ending debacle is that it's one of the earliest examples that I recall, at least, of a community like changing a game. And that's something that's like kind of normal now. But in, I guess it was 2012 when that came out, that that just like it doesn't happen, or that didn't happen at the time. And for that many people to get upset, and for BioWare to actually go back and like change it, is like pretty historic, I think. So that's always like the one thing that sticks out to me with those games, aside from how awesome they are. Just that whole, like the whole sort of like meta discussion around that ending, it's just fascinating to me.
I think you may be right. Of course, I don't have the data in front of me. I don't have a list of every game ever made. But
Right.
that
Yeah.
may be also my first instance where, the community came together and caused real change in the game. It's
Yeah.
still extremely rare and unheard of now. You know, I mean, think
Hmm.
about Pokemon with the bringing back national decks. I
Yeah.
mean, they didn't falter on that, but they were really gunning. Like, it went from, people complaining to now actively forcing, the developer's hand.
Hmm.
And unlike, okay, I would say very few games are bad in sense of a la the Sonic movie where no, you probably needed to change this. I can't think of, like,
uh,
I mean,
God.
I think Anthem wasn't bad. It just wasn't finished. It just needed more time, more loving in the oven, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. I
But
love that. I love that. More loving in the oven. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the thing
Interesting.
the thing that irks me with this is that wasn't fundamentally wrong. It was just a story
Yeah.
choice.
Right. And I think there's a discussion to be had there about like uh, what deems something necessary to be changed, right? I'm kind of with you. Like, regardless of if you think that's a good ending or not, I don't really think people were entitled to get that changed. That's just my opinion. I'm gonna do this, so the responsibility goes away from me.
Yes.
um, I. I just I think if something is like broken, like objectively broken, yes, obviously fix that or whatever. Like, or like something's offensive. That's a big one. Um, something like that, I think needs to be changed. But just like a good or a bad ending, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
Um, Me, okay. So my philosophy is, okay, I'll use Fallout 76. That game was fundamentally broken.
Hmm.
It was it was not finished. It was, I don't know what to call it. It had issues.
Yeah.
So the community demanding that this be fixed, worked on, bugged out, that's understandable. It's like watching a movie and it just cuts out halfway through. This is, I at
Yeah.
the very least want my money back. Fallout
Yeah.
76 is a more interesting case because they fixed it, air quotations, air quotes,
Y-
and then
Yeah.
charged you to play the fixed version after buying the game, and that's
Yeah,
never
that's
good.
pretty egregious. Yeah. But in terms of the trilogy remaster, which I think is, something we should definitely talk about, I think it's really great. It's bizarre that it took this long. I don't know what it is with EA. They have such a rich history of games, and they do remaster some of them, but it just seems like they leave out so many of their like fan favorites. I mean, we're getting Mass Effect now, thankfully, but I mean, there's still so many games. Dead Space is another great example that just nowhere to be found. I mean, you can barely even play it in a current sense. I think one of them might be backwards compatible with Xbox One, or maybe all of them. I don't know, but I'm just saying it's not as easy to get a hold of those games right now. So I don't know. It's just weird how EA handles things.
Yeah, so it's always the double-edged sword. I always tell people, we're not developers. We don't know what it takes. In the sense, do they have the time to fully remaster a game? Because
Yeah.
clearly, with like Mario 3D All Stars, yes, we're all happy we got it, but it's like this is just a port.
Right. Yeah.
Ports make us happy. We bought it. I bought it, so obviously I can't complain. I threw down $60 day one, no regret. But something like Resident Evil 2 remake and 3 remake and the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy and the Spyro, whatever they called it, trilogy. Since they're not simple ports, they're more or less making a new game from the ground up.
Hmm.
And and people will say, well, it's an outcry for it. Of course it's gonna sell. Well, people keep yelling for it, so their time will be compensated with, oodles of cash. But as a creator, since we're both creators, you don't want to always. It doesn't really. The analogy doesn't work so well, but we don't want to write the same article over and over again. We
Yeah,
prefer new
that's
ideas
true.
out there.
I think that's a good point. But yeah, sorry about my cat here.
I don't know. Animals are welcome.
Yeah. So, but in terms of the trilogy remaster, I think it's awesome. It's interesting that it's not coming to Switch. I saw a lot of people upset about that. Um, I
I feel
think
like
it
that's to
was.
be expected.
I guess so. It's just odd because there are games that are, third party games that come to Switch that you might not expect, like Witcher. I mean, there are lots of different games. Um, I think it was Jeff Grubb who said, because he has been he's been talking about this for a while. He said something to the effect of that, like, it's not in development now, or like don't expect it now, kind of implying that we might get a Switch version at some point.
Hopefully, it'll be on
So
the Switch 2 that Nintendo hasn't announced yet.
the Switch to Electric Boogaloo, yeah,
Yes,
that'd be
yes.
cool. Yeah. So you said you've never played these games before, right?
No, I never had. So I'm excited. So I get the remastered version. I'm looking forward to it. And before I forget this point, I'm gonna say I always wonder these remastered versions of games that we cry for like decades and decades that we never get. I'm always just like, why now? What was the tipping point?
Right. Yeah, exactly. What like we had been crying for this for like at least 5 years, right?
Yeah, maybe they always intended it to be next gen. That might be it. And if they came out and said that, regardless if it's a lie or not, I'm like, I appreciate that. We wanted to take advantage of
Right.
no load times, graphical fidelity, because
Hmm.
I think it's a smart business decision. Like we could have released this a year ago on current gen, or we could have waited for next gen and had it been like infinitely more
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this comes with all the DLC,
Yes.
all visual improvements, performance improvements, that kind of thing. With all of that in mind, uh, it's assumed that this is going to be a $60 game, right? I can't imagine them charging less than $60 for
Yeah.
this.
Or I guess the new industry standard may be 70, according to some people.
It's not across the board with the 70. Like Demon Souls, again, we'll talk about later, is a $70 game. Destruction All Stars, before it got converted to PS Plus, was a $70 game. I think NBA
Yeah,
$70, but
2K.
then
I think that's what broke
yeah,
it. 2K was $70, and then people, are
right.
went crazy.
But then other games are not $70, so it's not a standard across the board. I think for a remaster, most certainly it probably will not be $70, but I think 60. What do you think?
Yeah, see, I mean, we've just grown accustomed to paying $60.
Yeah.
And I think the trade-off is between that, like, okay, Mario 3D All-Stars, clearly not a $60 game.
Yeah,
But
that's
then,
such an interesting
yeah,
thing.
but then
Yeah,
you get Cyberpunk, and you're realistically like, this game, if it was priced how much it should actually price, would probably be closer to 100.
right.
GTA
Yeah,
5 is probably, in terms of value, more than $60. So
yeah.
that's my argument. Some games aren't worth 60, but a lot more are also worth more, probably. So
That's an interesting discussion too. Like, do you straight up just like um uh judge a game's value based on how much time you can spend with it? Some would argue yes. I would argue no. Like something like Journey, for example, a game that you can beat in an hour and a half in one sitting. I think that game is more valuable than a whatever, a game that is $60. Does that mean it should be priced more? Maybe, I don't know. But I guess my point is that you shouldn't uh, you shouldn't base your value on a game just on how long you spend with it, I guess is what I'm saying.
most definitely. I mean, The Last of Us, if you just really were about it, well, I'm talking about part one specifically, because part two is
Yeah.
kind of long, but it's a it could be a 15-hour experience, honestly, if you just
Right.
gun through it. But does that, I mean, I don't equate it to time. I mean, obviously, if I play the game for 200 plus hours, I have got my money's worth, no question asked. But
Right.
but if, as long as I've gotten, production quality to me matters in the game. It's like,
Sure.
yeah, it doesn't replace gameplay, but going the extra mile shows. So it's like,
Hmm.
and also at the end of the day, like, pure business, they do have to make money. You
Right.
can't be like, well, I'm gonna sell this game for $30 because it's a 10-hour experience, and like, they gotta make money.
Right.
They got an overhead, they got bills, they got employees, yada yada yada. What I will say though is, I do think certain games, for example, like 3D All Stars, if it's a simple port of a game, a code you already have, I feel like a price cut is probably like nothing dramatic, 40 to 50. This game is
Right.
$40, it's $50, you
Hmm.
know,
And
etc.
that's a tough, like that game. You keep bringing up 3D All Stars. That's a pretty egregious example, I think, just because it's so bare bones. I mean, with a lot of remasters, even just remasters, we've gotten accustomed to getting little bells and whistles, little features, little things like that. And with that game specifically, I mean, it was just the games. That's
Uh,
pretty much it.
Here's a kicker for you, because me and my friend argue about this all the time.
Yeah.
Was Link's Awakening Remastered worth the full price tag? He says no.
Uh, yeah,
They
that's
they
tough.
full
So
they fully remastered, but the game in itself is essentially, it's short, and it's like, you
yeah, eh, so in that case, I don't think it's fair to compare the two
okay,
because Link's Awakening is like a full remake,
this is true.
like from the ground up, and the other is not. Um, I get your point, but then I mean, you have to talk about something like Resident Evil 2. You talk about something like Resident Evil 3. Like, I think there's a difference between a remake and a port, right?
Oh no, most
And
definitely.
yeah, so like, is with Link's Awakening worth $60? I don't know. You can beat it. You can beat it in about 8 to 10 hours. It is rebuilt from the ground up, so that matters. I most certainly don't think 3D All Stars is worth $60, but with it
Yeah,
being Nintendo,
yeah. That's
Nintendo
the
sort of
easy
just
one. That's why I
yeah,
gave you the Link's Awakening, because I always ask people that when this discussion comes up. They'll be like,
yeah,
"Yeah, Resident Evil's easy. Look, it looks like it might as well be a new game." And I'm like, "Link's
right,
Awakening." I was like, "It is a full remake." And,
yeah,
and it's something inside of them is conflicted, like,
yeah. I
ah.
here, I'll put it to you this way. I bought Link's Awakening for $60, and I did not once regret the decision. I didn't once go, it's a little weird, like, it's a little sketchy that I paid that. I didn't once think about that. With 3D All Stars, on the other hand, I did. So one I think is certainly different than the other.
Yeah, most definitely. My gripe, but I'll leave this with 3 All-Stars, was like, um, it was a straight port. It wasn't even like they enhanced anything. I mean, visually, I'm pretty sure it looks better, like, if you did a side-by-side comparison, but
Right.
the glitches in 64 still exist. So I'm just like, "Okay, no, this is like the literal one-for-one code." Just, whatever
Mhm.
the mechanical process of putting it on the cartridge is.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later when we discuss Demon Souls. That's a pretty good example as well. Like, that's a remake from the ground up. So I think it's an interesting discussion to be had, and it's not an easy answer.
Yeah, ultimately, this is something that's gonna make a lot of people angry as consumers, as adults, as just people in general. You
Mhm.
know, we have free will. We do. So ultimately, we do not have to buy it. Like, we
Sure,
don't. Because
but you're gonna buy it anyway.
yeah,
So
like one of my favorite jokes is, with the boycott Pokemon because of the bringing back national decks, it
yeah,
still broke records. It sold like X amount of copies in 3 days, and it's just like
right.
either all you were like some of y'all had to be lying. Some of y'all had to be lying. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
some
that's
of
fair.
y'all, I'm not gonna support Nintendo. These weren't just a magical millions of people who never played a Pokemon game before buying it. I mean, it could
Right.
be, but I doubt it.
And to the point of 3D All Stars, that game sold extremely well. So what does that say to Nintendo? Oh yeah, just go ahead and just port games, and they're $60. That's it.
You,
Maybe.
here's the other trick of that. Maybe they just did it because people wouldn't shut up about it. Maybe they just had no intention, and they're just like, well, here it is.
Yeah.
Because it was a weird announcement. Like it's only going to be. I really think people think I'm crazy, but I really think because of that, it's only available until March 2021. Maybe
Hmm.
they're actually planning a full remaster of those games, and this was just like a snack before the meal. They're just like here, and maybe that's why it's only
Yeah.
sold until that time. Because then a month or so down the line, they're gonna release that, and they're like, we can't be selling them both because clearly no one's gonna buy this one. I don't know.
Well,
Wild
there.
guess.
But what's weird though is that there are other games that are also only going to be sold up until that point. So I don't know how that works. Like the Fire Emblem, the port of the original that never came to the US. I forget what it's called. Dragon Blade something. I don't know. And then also Super Mario 35. That's only available until March 31st, 2021. Something I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a fiscal year sort of thing to appease the shareholders. That sort of thing. It's just very bizarre. That
I don't
whole
know.
that whole thing.
Nintendo has always marched to the beat of their own drum.
It's
And
true.
I guess it always works out in the end. Honestly, though, I will say this. I will say this. If they try to repeat this with Zelda, I will not purchase unless it's a from the ground up 3D remake. That is the deal I made with myself.
Which Zelda?
Like
What are
I
you thinking?
I'm okay. First of all, Twilight Princess doesn't get enough love. First and foremost.
Oh man, it's gonna get spicy. I don't like that game. I don't like that game.
Oh,
It's gonna get
why?
spicy.
Why? You know what? No, no. We have other topics. Literally, I had a Twitter discussion with someone kind of like, I was like, hey, look, I'm gonna put this tweet out and ask people what they think of Twilight Princess because it's always at the bottom of people's list, and I don't know why. It's so great. Top 3
it
Zelda for me
man,
easily.
it's so weird that you say that because I see the exact opposite. I know we have to move on, but I just want
Yeah.
to quickly
Okay.
say
All right.
I
All right.
see a lot of people say that that's their favorite, but like by a lot. So I don't know. Maybe we have
Oh
two
yeah,
different
I'm
friend
I'm gonna do
groups.
this.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
do this experiment later, and I'm gonna tag you. I'm gonna tag you. Don't
Okay, all
worry.
right. Let's see. Let's
Yeah,
see.
but if they were to remake, okay, I feel like they'll take out Wind Waker because it's already received the HD treatment. Ocarina of
Right.
Time received a good upscaling on the 3DS, but I wouldn't go as far as call it a remake. It,
Yeah, that's a little.
it's like
Yeah.
a half step.
I think it literally is called remake though. I think.
Is it? I believe
Is it?
so.
Maybe here. It's made by Grezzo. Anyway, it's.
Yeah,
I get what
so
you're saying.
yeah, so
Yeah.
if they're gonna throw Ocarina of Time in there, Twilight Princess, they'll only skip Wind Waker because it's already got the treatment, and then
Right.
a much, much, much needed remastering of Skyward Sword.
Oh, absolutely.
That is number one. That Skyward Sword is not a bad game, but it can greatly benefit by re-releasing upscale. It just could. It just
And
could.
and the biggest complaint, of course, are the motion controls, which I'm of the mind that are like fine. I think the motion controls are fine, but I totally get wanting to play it with a regular controller.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand
Yeah,
that.
I think some quality of life changes would also be good. Like the whole water dragon sequence of like you save me twice now, I'll swim around for like an hour and a half
Yeah.
finding random things. So
Yeah, exactly.
I really feel like in the same sense Wind Waker gave you the motorboat sail where you didn't have to change the wind, you could just go. I forgot what it was called, but that's essentially what it was. So
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
Skyward Sword could Skyward Sword receive a lot of 10 out of 10s, but that's the only Zelda I would argue is probably like an 8, maybe a 7 if I'm feeling very hardcore critic. But
Oh
but
man.
but I love it enough, especially from a story aspect, that I feel like it needs to be revisited with a nice, there we go.
Yeah,
There's the 10 out of 10. There she
right.
is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm total. And what are you thinking? Like a package with all these games in it?
Yeah, like I don't think these should be sold as separate entities. I mean, if they were like, okay, if Twilight Princess was released by itself, like I'm buying it. That's a me thing. But I honestly feel at this point there's enough there to justify, like the trilogy packaging is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Regardless if it's actually 3 games or however many games that is the way to go. Do
Yeah,
not give us to us in separate pieces.
yeah,
Obviously,
I'm absolutely with you.
you have Mario and Zelda. You have to make which ones I'm gonna pick. I don't expect them to make every Mario game ever made remastered.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. I'd love to see that on Switch.
All right, but like a lot of people, including myself, would love to see a PS5 tomorrow on Thursday. And
Ugh.
let's be real, a lot of us won't.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of us won't.
Are you crying?
I am. So this is my horror story. So I'm leaving to Colorado on Friday, which means that's it. Thursday is
Yeah,
like I got Thursday. I'm not gonna have the weekend to. I mean, in theory, I could do it while I'm in Colorado, but this is gonna be like I had to go to. I'm pumping gas at like a Walmart, and I'm just like, let me, unless
yeah,
God literally
exactly.
comes down and it's just like there's a massive snowstorm, people weren't leaving their houses, and I'm probably so Thursday is my go-to day. ESP, if you didn't know, like I said earlier in the show, Sony has opted to not have an in-store release of the PS5. I don't know if that's due to COVID concerns or what have you, or just they didn't got the
Yeah,
stock.
yeah. I
Um,
think I think it's most definitely COVID related because think about a traditional console launch. It's usually pretty crazy.
yeah.
Um, I worked at GameStop for 5 years, and I worked the PS4 console launch and Xbox One, and yeah, it's always nuts, and it's always a lot of people coming in and you having to turn them down and tell them that you don't have it. But nonetheless, it's a lot of people. So yeah, I absolutely think it's COVID related. Um, that's tough, with somebody who missed the pre-orders, which were just a disaster, of course. So did you have an issue trying to get a pre-order?
Well, I already knew. So I was at work, so I already knew it was gonna be a tough go ahead anyway, because it's like, oh well, I'm gonna be at work. Obviously, if I'm doing something work related, that it only takes a minute to be for it to be gone.
Right.
But then, so I already had this plan set out of like, have my phone, like, and don't go to sleep mode, and
Yeah.
like, have that tab off to the side, told my friends like, hey, hit me up the second you hear something. And
Yeah.
then they all start to randomly be like, it's live. And so I'm just like, I was at the gym actually. I was leaving work on my way to the gym when the nonsense happened, because it happened, the night, evening before, depending on your time zone.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh crap. Well, now I only have my phone. And I was just like, okay, I kind of already knew in my heart. I'm just like, this probably ain't gonna go so well.
That's so sad. Oh God.
So it ultimately didn't. Then like the next day at work, I tried, and like GameStop did we're gonna have it on this day. Wait, and one thing
Yeah.
led to another. But some of the retailers, I believe, as of now, this might have changed at the time this goes live. That Walmart is the only retailer that has four, I believe, designated times that the pre-orders will go live, and then they'll do it at 9 and then noon and then 3 and then 5 or
Mhm.
what have you. So I'm
Right.
I'm really interested what other retailers are gonna do. Are they gonna roll out like some check this time, or is it going live at midnight on the East Coast, live at midnight on the West Coast? Is it just gonna
Yeah.
randomly do it during? I don't know. It's gonna be a cluster for sure, especially as of right now with the current information we have. It's gonna be a toss up.
Yeah, and I think the problem too with like trying to get it online is that the sites just like crash or they don't work. Like Target, for example, was giving people a lot of problems when people were trying to pre-order. You would it would the system would come up and you would hit load into cart and it would look like it did, and then you would click the cart to check out and your cart would be empty. That happened a lot. Other retailers just wouldn't load. I was having a problem with Best Buy just not loading. So I think it's one thing to have limited availability, but it's another for just like the websites to not work at all. That's really frustrating, especially when you're like, I have the dollars, I will give you the money. Let me give you the money. I have it. So yeah, but again, I think COVID is another issue here. I think it impacted the manufacturing. It makes it hard to make systems, so that's an issue. There's a lot that it can affect, right? So I think it's miraculous that we're even getting this system this year as planned.
That is, got to count our blessings and all that good stuff. That it's still happening on the date planned. I assume this November 12th was probably the date. I mean, looking at past
Mhm.
console launches, this is right on cue with all
Right.
the other ones. So kudos to Sony and the team there. And I know the cluster isn't necessarily going to be their fault per se. They can't
It,
control bots. You know,
yeah,
you
it's
know they deserve some leeway. I'm not giving them a free pass,
yeah.
but it's
I
it's it's just gonna be unfortunate. I've never had this hard a time to get a console.
Well, the other problem too is if this is your job, like to have a system like this, that's even more of a problem. Like, there's a difference between just being a fan and wanting it to play your games. But like for me, when I've got like work already planned around the system, I like have to have it as soon as I can, you know. And that's kind of an unusual circumstance. Most people don't have that problem.
This is true.
Um, but nonetheless, that's something that a lot of us in the video game industry have dealt with here. That we can't even get a machine to do our jobs with. That's hard, you know.
Yeah, and I know this year because of social injustices and protests, a lot of content creators that normally wouldn't get it got one, and I was like, man, I should have jumped on this train. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
how I
exactly.
missed it. The train has gone and the time has gone and passed, and I'm just like, man, I was not thinking
Yeah.
on that. Like, I was over
Um,
here thinking I was gonna buy it like a regular person.
like a peasant.
Exactly.
From what I understand, Sony's pretty hard to get a hold of, so I don't know. It's tough. You can't really count on that. So yeah, but I'm with you. I hope you get one soon. The nice thing is that Sony is. They said that they want this system to outperform the PS4, so that means they're gonna have to have a lot ready for you to buy at some point. You know.
This is true. I told myself I might get a pair of 3D Pulse. I've been looking at the reviews. Are they called 3D
Mm,
Pulse? The new Sony headphones. They're called 3D
yeah,
something. Yeah,
Pulse. Yeah.
yeah. And normally I just I use the headphones I'm currently wearing, but I'm like, you know what? The price really got me because those headphones are usually, of that caliber, in the 200 range. I was like, $99. I can do that.
Yeah, a lot of
I can
people
do
have
that.
said that. A lot of people have complimented it on the price. So when do you think you'll be able to get your hands on one? Do you have an idea?
I'm hoping tomorrow for sure.
Yeah,
I just am.
yeah.
I have a friend. He already got his. When GameStop, uh, they had their physical. You can come in, reserve it in person in store.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
drove out. I live in Houston. He drove out to a place called Crosby, which is like a good hour away from Houston. It's a small town, and he went to
Mhm.
their GameStop early in the morning, and the first six people in line were allowed to reserve it, and he was number six.
Wow.
And that's
Man.
because That's what he had to do. So he's taking the day off Thursday, obviously, so he can reap the benefits. So I have him on call. I'm gonna have my stuff up, and
Mm.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put my best foot forward. If it doesn't happen, whatever. Ooh, excuse me. Not
I,
gonna trip. I'm gonna check up periodically over the weekend. When I get back on Monday, though, if I have not secured it via a friend, lifeline, the Lord Himself, then I will panic.
Okay. All right. You might have luck with somebody canceling their pre-order. That happens actually. Like I said, I worked at GameStop. When systems would launch, whether it's a new generation or just like a new iteration of a system, a lot of times people would cancel. So that might work in your benefit. Can't really count on it, but you might get lucky. I'm rooting for you though. I hope you get one.
Yeah, it's interesting that Xbox had some problems, but they did not have the problems Sony had. I wonder did they learn from their mistake? I wonder did that play to any part when they saw the fiasco and they're like, oh crap, let's call the retailers, let's call the guy, the lady, the
The
whoever,
lady.
whoever their supply chain managers are, and they're like, yo, we cannot let this
Right.
happen. Because
Yeah.
I
Well,
heard stories with Xbox, it was more or less seamless. Like if you wanted one, you pretty much got it.
yeah. What was interesting though is Sony said something to the effect of like, "We'll let you know when the pre-orders go live." And
They
so
didn't.
people were like, right, yeah. People were like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, no problem." And they just like I think Walmart might have been the first one. They just
Yeah,
opened up the pre-orders. And then other retailers I think were like, "Oh shit, we got to follow suit." So
yeah.
then they started up. It was just not organized. And then Sony even like tweeted out something like, "Hey, that could have gone better." That sort of thing. Like, so it's very clear that it was a big mess.
Yeah, but we'll see. And to everyone out there listening who has not secured the bag, I hope you secured the bag. You get it. You get to enjoy your Miles Morales PS5. I
Yeah.
told myself I'm not playing a game on PS4. I'm sorry. It's not because it will be bad on PS4. It's just like I feel this was made to be experienced on the PS5, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Right. Yeah, which that game looks so great, by the way, and it's only like 15 hours long or so, which I'm so happy about. I don't need a 100-hour game,
Oh
so yeah.
god. Yeah, I saw something. It was like, 15 hours to complete, maybe like 45, 50 for the trophy. I'm like the platinum. I'm like, oh, perfect, perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
that sounds
And
great.
yeah, between that and Astro's Playroom, which correct me if I'm wrong, comes with the console free,
Yep,
or just
comes
you have to.
installed onto the hard drive. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm like between those two games, I'm set until Christmas, unless
So no,
I pick up Demon Souls.
that's what I was just gonna say. No demon souls.
Okay.
Great,
I
great
am not a
segue.
fan of the Souls-born franchise, the Souls games, the Born games,
Okay.
the Sekiros, and I like hard games. Don't get me wrong. Like I love Celeste. I beat that playing through Hades. It's not. I don't. It's gonna sound weird. I don't like when being hard is a fundamental mechanic.
Hmm.
It like I don't
That's
mind upping the difficulty of an RPG. I don't mind like doing a second run on extreme, but I don't know. I can't I'm not saying they're bad games. I'm not saying that. Like, because I will
I get.
argue roguelike are bad games. Like, I will take that
Oh man,
stance. I will die on that hill. But Souls and Borns games, they're not bad games. They're just fundamentally not for me.
that's totally fair. What I will say is that I don't know if I agree with you that difficulty is a mechanic. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Um, it's tough to say, right? Like I wasn't there when the games were made. I don't know exactly what their specific vision is, but I don't know. It's so weird with me because like I've played those games so much, like I know them in and out that like I don't even like think of them as like challenging anymore. And I know that sounds like a flex. It's not. It's not. It's my point is that I put a lot of time into it, and that once you like, there's a moment when it clicks, and once it clicks, it's not really about like, oh, this is so hard. It's about just like learning the rhythm of it, and once that clicks, it's like it's a totally different ball game. And so difficulty being a mechanic, I don't know. That's I'd have to think about that more. But to your point of that it's not for you, totally fair. Totally fair. I understand that. They're hard. They really are hard. So that makes sense.
No, and it is. I'm really thinking because you're not the first person to tell me that you have the eureka moment, so to speak. Where the light bulb
Mhm.
goes off, it all makes sense, and it's beautiful and it's magical. Because honestly, I live for that moment in games. I really do live like, and at this point, when we work in the industry, we do it to a living. You do it fully for a living. I'm trying to get to your level, sir. Trying to get to
Oh
that.
god. Hey, hold on.
Okay.
I want to just say, when I first started, you're one of the first people who started following, like looking up
Oh,
to looking up to
no.
your work. I no, I mean it. I mean it.
Nah.
Yeah, I mean it. I remember because I think you worked with IGN or something. It was one of the big outlets. Kind of funny, maybe, I don't know. You worked with one of the bigger outlets, and I just thought that was incredible. Like, and we talked, I remember, and I just thought that was so awesome. So for you to say that about me, it's like, oh man, like I'm looking up to you. It's
Oh,
bizarre.
not. I'm happy I cannot blush.
Am I allowed to laugh at that? Because that was
Yes,
funny.
yes.
Okay,
It was meant to be
okay.
funny. Anyone
Okay,
questioning, are you allowed to laugh at that Odell joke? Yes, yes, you are.
okay,
Guilt
awesome.
free.
um, yeah. So, but anyway, there is, I think, a eureka moment if you spend enough time with it. So the interesting thing, going back to Demon Souls, is that um, it's like, I think, pretty flawed compared to the other games, just in terms of quality of life. Like, just little things here and there. It's kind of janky. I'm talking about the PS3 version. Kind
Okay.
of janky, kind of ugly, like just little things here and there. But despite all of that, I actually think it's a great starting point. And the reason for that is that it's the most linear game out of Bloodborne, Dark Souls, all of them. It's the most linear, and it's one that I think that, because of that linearity, that's one less thing you have to worry about, and you can focus your time more on learning the combat and learning the rhythm. And so I think if people are gonna try this series, try to get in, I think Demon Souls Remake is an excellent place, because not only is it improving on a lot of those quality of life issues, but it's also the foundation of it is linear, I think, or more linear than the rest of them. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not forcing you to try it, but I think if you're gonna try to get into it, I think Demon Souls is a great place to start.
Oh no. I'm honestly I'm on the fence because I do want to buy it. I'm on the fence because I don't want to buy it and it sits there. Because I absolutely hate when I do that with games. My friend
Right.
bought me Dishonored because he was like, "It's so good, I want you to play it," and I have still to this day, I'm sorry, have not played Dishonored. I look at it on my shelf sometimes. I'm like, "Oh, I need something to play," and it looks at me and it looks back at me, and I pretend it's not there.
That's now that's, I think, pretty bad to not have played Dishonored yet.
Yeah,
That's a great game. You gotta. It's only like 8 hours or 10 hours long. When you
you
get a
know,
chance, I'm just saying.
it's we all have our those games, when everyone's talking about, oh, this game that everyone should play, and you're a journalist, you should have played. You're like, yeah, yeah, it's insert great compliment here, of
Right.
course. Yeah, that I can comfortably say I just didn't play Mass Effect. I missed the boat, because
Yeah.
it's such a huge game. I was gonna play two, and then people are like, "Oh no, you really can't play two. You gotta go through one and play two." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll
Yeah.
make time to play one." And then also, these games came out while I was in college. That's my ultimate excuse. It was just like I
Yeah.
I got to
I'm
pass
with you.
class, but Dishonored,
Right.
that's my that's my yeah. I
I
don't
won't
have a
tell
reason for,
anybody.
yeah. But
I
no,
won't tell anybody.
it looks amazing, and it looks amazing in the sense that it looks next gen. Like, I don't,
Right.
for lack of a better term, decorum, it looks next gen. And I don't want to miss that boat of being like, wow, this was the first look into how amazing next gen can be. Because I'm not gonna lie, the PS3, PS4, 360 to Xbox One leap to me was not that impressive.
Mhm.
It was better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, but graphically, it didn't get impressive until, I would say, honestly, till maybe about 2018 until now.
Right. Yeah, I think
And
that's fair.
but this is seems like a considerable. if this is where we are already, I can't even fathom where it will go.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point.
yeah, so I want to play it. I want to experience this world. Like you gave me more confirmation. It's an excellent jump off point. So
Yeah.
and I can, maybe over the Christmas holiday hit that moment. And one of the things that I was really impressed about, they just recently revealed the character creator. According to your point, you said the game looked really janky. And I don't know if people got this for me, but being black and trying to create a black character in games has always been a struggle. It's, I'm not the first one to mention this, but the ethnic features from hair to proper skin tone, my God.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
I'm on the darker side of things, but I'm not like the color jet black. And it's
God.
always like too light to be black, and then just like almost insultingly black. Those were like the
Right.
two skin tones.
That's what, and when I say janky, I'm referring to the PS3 version.
Mhm.
It's like really bad the way it looks. And people create these monstrosities that are just like the colors are just not right. Like to your point, that's not what a person looks like. That shade of black or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point. The character creator looks so much better, and yeah, just seeing like the pores on people's skin and stuff. It's such a difference.
Yeah.
It's leaps and bounds better.
I will go as far as to say, to date, it is probably the best character creator I've ever seen.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because I've seen, I know, what was one? It wasn't Horizon. That was another game that featured a really Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter had
oh yeah,
a really in-depth character creator. And then
mm,
I'll say it's almost putting that one to shame based off what I've seen in the
yeah,
videos. I don't have it in my hand, but I was celebrating Monster. I was like, "Ooh, look at this coarse hair and colors," and now I'm looking at
yeah.
this. I'm like, "Oh crap! Excuse me. Sorry for ever saying that was good. No shade on Monster Hunter. No shade on Monster Hunter."
No, no. The one thing I will say, and I don't mean to shut down your hopes and dreams, is that in these games you get armor and like you wear helmets and armor and stuff, and so like you probably won't get to look at your awesome character that you created. It's like you probably won't want to do that because you'll need the armor, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of this. In my mind, I'm probably just gonna like blast through the character creator and like not even try like focus on that because I know that I already know which armor I need. I already know that I'm gonna have to wear this different outfit and stuff. So I'm not even gonna get to enjoy the character creator probably.
I take no offense to that because even though I'm excited, I'm gonna put down my wall. I'm gonna be vulnerable for you out there. I suck at character creators. So even if I got all the tools, Whistle's like, it'll be like, yeah, that's a guy. It ain't me, but it's a guy. So
Certainly is a human being.
so I'm happy that it can be done. So, that gives me, it's like cool. Now I can just be like, I'm in the ballpark and call it a day. But
Right.
it still makes me excited because I feel like maybe those reasons why I've never delved deep into it is because I've never had the options to get anywhere close to myself. So,
That yeah, I
yeah.
think that's totally fair. I think
So
that's fair.
in the future, in a whatever's the follow up to Final Fantasy 14, MMO or something, and a character that, I will see whatever genre or form it may take. If they keep being this level of good, I might find a game where like, no, I want to actually, take the time to, make my character look like me or whatever vision I have. Or let's
Yeah.
be real, get someone who's good at that, a homie, and be like, hey, do it for me.
Yeah. And I wanted to double back on what you said in terms of like representation and like accurate representation. That's so important, right? And so I know I said that I'm probably not going to use it, but I think the fact that it's there though is still so important. And I think to your point of black, like straight up just a black color I hope we don't see that anymore because that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
People don't look like that.
It's like
So yeah.
ultimately black is my race, but my skin is very much brown.
Right, right. And going back to the game itself, the gameplay, I do want to say that I, I think it's the easiest of the Souls games.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear for me. I don't know about
Yeah.
y'all out there, but for Odell Harmon Jr., that is good to hear.
um, it's up to interpretation. It's subjective, of course. But I just recently wrote a walkthrough for it, so I had that
Oh, okay.
turned on. I had that turned on in my brain to like think about it like that. And what's so fascinating, and I don't remember this when I originally played it, is that you can like cheese through probably half the bosses.
Really?
The ones you can't cheese through, I would say probably half of those are like not too difficult. So really, there's only like a handful of bosses you really have to be like quote unquote skilled at. There are certain ones that you can literally just shoot with an arrow just continuously, and they won't even attack you. There's stuff like that. There's another one where you can attack them through the geometry. There are all these like little like cheese little glitchy kind of bug, I don't know if they're bugs or not, but little just like cheese mechanics you can do. And from what I understand, some of those are being kept in the remake,
Oh, very nice.
um, which is very fascinating to me. I think that's a whole other conversation, I guess. But Bluepoint, the developer of the remake, is really wanting to stay true to what From Software created, to the point of keeping glitches, keeping little cheese mechanics, that sort of thing. And I think that's really cool. Some people might not agree with that, but I do think it's really cool.
Oh no, there's definite uh because the thing with remasters is, and people may argue this is, but I think it's 100% accurate that nostalgia should be a key factor in making a remaster. There's some things, there's some quality of life changes that should be kept as is for nostalgia purposes. And I
Yeah.
just truly believe that. Okay, there's some like, okay, for Wind Waker, just to full circle back to that, like make it into where you didn't need to change the wind quite literally every 30 seconds was just a plus. You know,
Yeah. Right.
and you could dequip, you could just have the original cell, like if you didn't want it.
That's a great point. I
Yeah.
think that right there, what you just said, is the way it should be handled. In Demon Souls, you can actually revert back to a lot of the original. I think there's something you can do with the gameplay itself to revert it back to the original, because in the remake you have omnidirectional rolling, so you
Mhm.
can roll in 8 directions, and in the original I think it was only 4. Like you couldn't roll diagonally. And
Okay.
if you want to go back to that, I don't know why you would, but if you want to go back to that, I think you can. Same with the visuals, right? So to your point of that giving you the option, I think that's a great way to handle it. That way everybody gets what they want. If you want to play it the old way, if you want to play it the new way, those options are available.
Most definitely. And I honestly think, kind of like with cartoons, especially, Animaniacs is coming back. I hope it's great. But
Nice, yeah.
I will say the one reason I'm okay with called for remakes never happen is because I don't want a team like with Crash Bandicoot, Toys for Bob, God bless their souls. Like, they're not Naughty Dog developers, or I don't know if some came from Naughty Dog. The point is, I don't think any of them worked on the original Crash games. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, I don't think no part of them is the original team. So if you're
Hmm.
gonna remake something and the team is not there for whatever reason, contractual agreements, just moved on with other ways of life, you got to find people that truly loved what they're doing, because if they don't, it will show. And if it shows even a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, the community will chew it up and spit it back out in a heartbeat. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sad but true, because there have been
Hmm.
games that, I feel their heart were in the right place, but they didn't. There was a there was a fundamental love you need. For example, when they made a Metal Gear the zombie game, which I can't even remember right now.
Oh, Metal Gear Survive.
Yeah, it was Metal Gear themed, but there was no Metal Gear love in it.
Right. Yeah,
Versus
that's a great point.
versus Metal Gear Rising wasn't necessarily, a true at its core heart a Metal Gear game, but the people who made it had a fundamental understanding of why people liked Metal Gear. So
Which,
I
by the way, that game is amazing. I think that game is incredible, and I think people really don't give that game enough credit. I'm just
I
saying,
I'm with you there.
Metal Gear
I'm with you
Rising
there.
is awesome.
I'm with you there.
So awesome.
There's nothing about Metal Gear like, if you just told me Kojima worked on this from A to Z, I would believe you, because that's how Metal Gear it feels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One game I wanted to bring up on the topic of remakes is Resident Evil 3. Um, that's an interesting game to me because it comes on the heels of Resident Evil 2, which is so beloved. And with the remake of 3, I think that's an example, just like you were discussing, of a game that didn't have, I think, the love that it deserved, especially compared to how good the remake of 2 was. It's a game. 3 is a game that has a lot of content, and it's a game that just could have been, I think, so much better. I remember when I first played it, I downloaded it right at midnight, right away, as soon as I could get it, and I beat it in one sitting,
Hmm.
just right there. And again, I don't want to equate value to time, but my point is that there's so little there that I beat it in like 4 hours or whatever, compared to 2, which was like closer to 15 or something. So that's an interesting sort of example of the love not being there in a remake, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, a constant. Well, I don't play Metal Gear games because I'm not a scary game guy. I just can't. But
You mean Resident Evil? You don't play Resident Evil games?
the scariest game I've ever beat is Last of Us and Last of Us Part Two, and I know that honestly
Oh,
they're
okay.
not that scary, but
They're a little scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like that was like my threshold of like I can do this. Anything beyond that, like Dead Space, Alien Isolation, Resident Evil, like Def. Oh, crap. What's the one with the camera and the night mode?
Oh, Outlast.
Outlast. Yeah. Oh, Like I could barely watch my roommate play Outlast, let alone play that game. But
Too scary.
but amongst scary game lovers, I even hear them say Outlast is a little, it's a little, it's up there and nerve wracking.
Yeah,
But nerve
it is.
wracking, but no, whatever gets on
Nerve
your
wracking. Yeah.
yeah, and so I haven't played it, so these are opinions of others, but a common opinion I kept hearing was that Resident Evil 3 remake should have just been DLC for part 2. And that like people and I really can't, my answer to that is no, because I feel like anything that's a full remake probably shouldn't be DLC. But like you said, I haven't played it, so I can't give my own opinion. But you've all felt the same thing, that it just was not enough there.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like there's an entire section in the original Resident Evil 3 where you're in this clock tower. There's like a puzzle you have to do in there. It's just, there's a lot there. And it's like non-existent. I think the closest thing they
Really?
come to, yeah, the closest thing they come to in 3 is that you get to see a clock tower in the
Oh, that's the
distance.
boss battle where he's like the dog thing, right?
Yeah, you're like fighting him in this circle. So that's pretty that's a big issue. The other thing is that in the original Resident Evil 3, Nemesis could just come out whenever, basically. He could randomly show up, versus in the remake there were scripted sections when he would come out. So there was a little bit more tension, I feel like, in the original, because like he could be at any corner,
Mm.
versus this, I guess you don't know it at the time, but in retrospect you do. He just pops up at specific moments,
He's
and so
scripted.
that's
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of another problem. It just sucks because what's there is great. It's just I don't think it's finished, I think, is what it
Okay.
is.
Well, now I have a little more clarity. I didn't know there was like legit content that was in the original that didn't make it into the remake.
Yeah,
That's a I wonder were they trying to just hurry up and get it out to capitalize on
yeah,
the success of 2, I wonder then.
right. Yep, that's exactly what it is, and that's a fair concept. I understand that idea, but I would have much rather than spend another year on it and get a full package.
Oh yeah, I don't think in no stretch of the imagination they lost a single dollar by having that game wait. Like 2 was so great that like people just been itching for 3 and would have, rather it was the day it came out or a year or two later, would have the same enthusiasm.
Hmm. Yeah,
Especially
I'm with you.
if you would have coupled with like this is gonna drop between 8 at some point. Like, I don't know when the release date for 8 is off the top of my head if they've announced it, but
It doesn't. I think it's 2021.
yeah,
But
so
that's,
like
yeah,
so
no,
like like maybe like 4 or 5 months before 8, you drop 3. Oh yeah. Like instant, like
yeah,
no brainer.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
oh, go ahead.
going back to Demon Souls, from what I can tell, it looks like it's everything I wanted, everything I would want from a remake, from visual improvements, from quality of life, little mechanical things that are fixed, even things that were sort of like overpowered in the original. Some things are being tweaked a little bit, ever so slightly, but I think the main point is that Blue Point is being so careful to stay true to what From Software created, and even down to enemy placement, item placement, I think is all going to be exactly the same. And I think that's really awesome. The one thing I wanted to suggest as well is if you are going to play this game, you can lean heavily on the co-op feature. You can play you can do every boss cooperatively, and that can really, really help. And it can sort of help you get through a lot of those tough moments, and you'll level up when you do that. And so I think co-op is sort of when that eureka moment hits. Honestly, when you start to get into the co-op flow, I think that's when it hits.
All right, so when I ring the bell, the gong, or whatever I do, I expect you to show up.
You know, it's so funny because a lot of people have already asked me for that. I have a long list of people. I guess I'm helping. I don't know, but yeah, I would love to help out, because I remember when I first played Demon Souls, it didn't click with me, and I remember thinking, I don't really get this. It is hard, but it's like ugly too. Like I don't really want to play. And when it did click, I'm like, oh man, and the co-op is so fun. I have a character on Dark Souls who's specifically meant for just helping people. Like I'll leave my sign right in front of bosses and just help people, because I get it. Those games are tough, and it feels really good to overcome a boss with a group of people.
Okay, and I'm already a Blue Point fan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they did the Shadow of the Colossus remake, right?
They did, yeah.
Yeah,
They
and
did that.
that was wonderful. Like I played the original, so when I played the remake, I was just like, oh yeah, man, this is it. This is
Mhm.
I'm happy a lot of people got to play that game. And some will argue that game's kind of hard and janky because I guess it can be to a certain
Yeah,
degree, but like
yeah.
I'm like Blue Point is already gold in my book. And like I said, unlike roguelikes, which that's a conversation for another time, which I hate on a fundamental level. I am playing Hades, people. You got me. I'm playing it.
It's
I,
good. It's really good.
I'll have my opinions on it later, but
Oh, okay.
so,
All
so
right.
I'm like, this is like, okay, I can revisit this. I can, and I have a perfect opportunity now. Assuming I get my PS5, I
Yeah.
will do that. But that'll be a story for another time. But that's it for today's show. As always, I'm Odo Harmon Jr. Please feel free to follow me at Odo Harmon Jr. Like, share, subscribe. It's free 99, free of charge. You're already here. Might as well do it. Follow Joseph. Do that too. And if you're really feeling digging the show, there is a Patreon available. Links below. Patreon, Full Circle Podcast. And I want to give a shout out to my Patrons, Gabriel Garcia, Baked Rice, Ryan Frazier. Y'all the coolest. Appreciate that. But again, you ain't got to do that because you're on your phone. You just hit a button. You hit a button. That's all it takes
Okay.
to make my day, get me a job somewhere. So,
uh,
Joseph, I'd like to thank you. And again, can you tell people who you are, where to find you, keep up with you, see your work, all that great stuff?
yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be in. I don't know, man. To me, that's like just a person who lives on across the country. We did meet at PAX, actually.
We did.
That was
The
awesome.
last PAX in person, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, somebody across the country to say, hey, come on my show. That's really cool. So thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Joseph Yaden. You can find my work at Digital Trends. I'm going to have a lot of Demon Souls coverage coming out the upcoming week and next week through Fanbyte Media, Digital Trends, probably Games Radar. So a lot of that. And then I also have a podcast as well, Active Quest, and you can follow that on Twitter at Active Quest Show. I would appreciate it. And yeah, thank you again so much, Odell. This was really great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate you being here. But to you all out there, I hope you enjoyed hope you enjoyed the show. If you have a Shay, please enjoy that as well. And have a good weekend. Be blessed.
Take care. Bye.